Right now, as you're listening to these words, your brain is filtering through thousands of pieces of information, storing what it deems important, and quietly erasing what it considers unnecessary. This is a magnificent process that happens every second without you noticing, and perhaps by the time this story ends you won't even remember exactly what you were thinking about when it began. In the gloomy November of 2019, there was a strange video floating around in the dark corners of YouTube. Only 3 minutes and 42 seconds long, titled simply Reset. This video had nothing particularly special about it at first glance. Ordinary electronic music, slowly shifting geometric shapes, hypnotic colors, the kind of content that would normally disappear among millions of similar uploads. But people who watched this video began to notice something very peculiar. Sarah Chen was a neuroscience PhD student at Stanford University, and she had a nightly ritual of watching relaxing videos on YouTube. After long days in the laboratory, she would unwind with meditation videos, nature sounds, ambient music. That November night she had typed sleep music into the search bar and randomly selected one of the videos that appeared. When the video ended, she felt strangely refreshed, as if space had been cleared in her mind, mental clutter swept away. The next morning, Sarah felt like something was missing. When she tried to remember what she had watched the previous evening, there was only a blurry memory. She checked her YouTube history, but the video was gone. Not just from her history, but it seemed to have vanished entirely from the platform. She searched for Reset for the channel name she vaguely remembered, for any combination of keywords that might bring it back. Nothing. This might have been the end of Sarah's strange encounter, just another glitch in the vast digital ecosystem. But Sarah was a scientist, and scientists don't let mysteries go unsolved. She began documenting everything she could remember about the video, writing down every detail no matter how insignificant it seemed. The music had been melodic, but in an unusual way, not the typical ambient droning she was used to, but something that seemed to follow patterns her ears couldn't quite catch. The visuals had been geometric shapes, yes, but they moved in a way that felt almost alive, pulsing and flowing like biological organisms. And the colors, they shifted through spectrums that felt familiar yet impossible to name. 3 days later, Sarah received an email that would change everything. Dr. Marcus Webb from the University of Edinburgh had been conducting research on digital amnesia and memory formation when he stumbled upon Sarah's research profile online. His message was brief but intriguing. "I believe you may have encountered something that relates to my current research. Are you available for a video call?" During their conversation, Dr. Webb revealed that Sarah wasn't the only one. Over the past 6 months, he had been collecting reports from individuals around the world who described similar experiences. Always the same pattern: a YouTube video that felt refreshing to watch, followed by an inability to remember or locate it afterward, and a strange sense that something had been cleared from their minds. The fascinating thing, Dr. Webb explained, adjusting his glasses as he spoke through the pixelated video call, is that everyone describes the after effects in remarkably similar terms. They feel mentally decluttered, more focused, as if unnecessary memories or thoughts had been removed. But when we ask them to specify what exactly was removed, they can't say. Sarah leaned forward in her chair. As a neuroscience student, she knew that memory formation and deletion were among the most complex processes the brain performs. "Are you suggesting that this video somehow induced targeted memory suppression?" "I'm not suggesting anything yet," Dr. Webb replied carefully, "but I think we need to find this video." What Sarah and Dr. Webb didn't know was that halfway around the world, in a small apartment in Tokyo, a young programmer named Kenji Nakamura was having trouble sleeping. For 3 months now, ever since watching a peculiar video late one night, he had been experiencing what he could only describe as mental gaps, not memory loss exactly, but rather a sense that certain thoughts or worries that used to occupy his mind had simply disappeared. Kenji worked for a tech startup that specialized in AI-driven content analysis, and his analytical mind couldn't let this mystery rest. He had begun reverse engineering his own YouTube algorithm, trying to trace back the recommendation patterns that might have led him to the mysterious video. It was painstaking work, requiring him to dig through cached data, server logs, and algorithmic pathways that YouTube preferred to keep hidden. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic in London, Dr. Emma Rodriguez was treating a patient with an unusual case of selective amnesia. 28-year-old James Morrison had come to her clinic complaining of holes in his memory that seemed to have appeared overnight. Not traumatic memories or significant life events, but rather mundane worries, persistent anxious thoughts, and what he described as mental background noise that had simply vanished. It's not that I can't remember specific events, James explained during their session. It's more like, you know how your mind is always chattering, always running through problems and concerns. Well, for about 3 weeks now, my mind has been quieter. It should be a good thing, but it feels unnatural. Dr. Rodriguez had seen cases of dissociative amnesia before, but never anything quite like this. The precision of the memory loss was remarkable. It seemed to target only certain types of thoughts and memories while leaving others completely intact. As she documented the case, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was something entirely new in the field of memory research. The breakthrough came when Kenji's algorithmic detective work finally bore fruit. Hidden in the deep layers of YouTube's recommendation system, he discovered traces of a video that matched his fragmented memories. The video had been uploaded by an account called Cognitive Clarity, which had existed for exactly 7 days before being deleted. But Kenji's analysis revealed something more intriguing. The video hadn't been randomly recommended to users. It had been specifically targeted to individuals whose viewing histories suggested they were dealing with anxiety, depression, insomnia, or cognitive overwhelm. When Kenji shared his findings with the growing network of researchers and affected individuals, the implications began to sink in. This wasn't a random glitch or an accidental side effect. Someone had deliberately created a piece of media designed to interact with human memory in a very specific way. Dr. Webb's investigation took on new urgency. He began reaching out to neuroscientists, cognitive researchers, and digital media experts around the world. The response was remarkable. Dozens of professionals reported that they had been documenting similar cases, but had assumed they were dealing with isolated incidents. At MIT, Dr. Lisa Chang had been studying the neurological effects of visual stimuli on memory consolidation. She had noticed an uptick in subjects reporting unusual memory experiences after participating in online media studies, but had attributed it to normal variation in cognitive responses. At the University of California, Berkeley, Dr. Robert Kim had been researching the potential for audio frequencies to influence brainwave patterns. Several participants in his studies had mentioned experiencing memory gaps after exposure to certain sound combinations, but he had dismissed these reports as placebo effects. At Oxford, Dr. Patricia Hawthorne had been investigating the relationship between visual attention and memory formation. She had documented cases where subjects exposed to specific visual patterns showed altered neural activity in regions associated with memory processing. As these researchers began comparing notes, a picture started to emerge. The mysterious YouTube videos seemed to have been engineered using cutting-edge research from multiple fields of neuroscience and cognitive psychology. It wasn't just random content, it was a precisely crafted tool designed to interact with the human brain in a very specific way. But who had created it, and why? The answer came from an unexpected source. Dr. Elena Vasquez, a former researcher at a now-defunct tech company called Mimic Solutions, reached out to Dr. Webb after seeing his research published online. Her story would reveal the true origin of the mysterious video, and the ethical questions surrounding it would shake the scientific community to its core. Mimic Solutions had been founded in 2018 with a bold mission to develop digital therapeutics for trauma and anxiety using advanced neuroscience research. The company had attracted some of the brightest minds in cognitive science, neurology, and digital media. Their goal was to create content that could provide the benefits of traditional therapy through carefully designed audio-visual experiences. We called it targeted memory relief, Dr. Vasquez explained during a secure video conference with the research team. The idea was to create media that could help people suffering from intrusive thoughts, traumatic memories, or chronic anxiety by temporarily suppressing the neural pathways associated with these experiences. The science behind it was revolutionary. By combining specific audio frequencies that influence brainwave patterns, visual stimuli that guided attention and focus, and carefully timed pacing that matched natural memory consolidation cycles, the team had developed what they believed could be a breakthrough in mental health treatment. We tested it extensively in controlled clinical environments, Dr. Vasquez continued. The results were remarkable. Subjects reported significant reduction in anxiety, fewer intrusive thoughts, and an overall sense of mental clarity. But we were very careful about the implementation. Each session was supervised by trained professionals, and we had extensive protocols for monitoring and follow-up. But then something had gone wrong. Dr. Vasquez's voice became strained as she continued her account. One of our lead researchers, Dr. Alexander Novak, became convinced that we were thinking too small. He believed that if our therapy was effective, we had an obligation to make it available to as many people as possible, not just those who could afford clinical treatment. Dr. Novak had been brilliant, perhaps too brilliant. He had begun working on a version of their therapy that could be delivered through standard digital platform, YouTube streaming services, social media. His goal was noble: to democratize mental health treatment and help millions of people around the world who didn't have access to traditional therapy. But we had strict ethical protocols, Dr. Vasquez stressed. Any therapeutic intervention, especially one that affects memory and cognition, requires informed consent, professional supervision, and careful monitoring. Alex wanted to bypass all of that. The conflict within Mimic Solutions had been intense. While the company's leadership recognized the potential benefits of making their treatment more accessible, they also understood the enormous risks. Memory is fundamental to human identity and consciousness. Interfering with it, even beneficially, without proper safeguards and consent, was ethically unacceptable. Dr. Novak had disagreed. According to Dr. Vasquez, Dr. Novak had argued that their treatment was harmless. It only removed negative, intrusive thoughts and memories while leaving everything else intact. He saw it as no different from providing meditation apps or relaxation videos. But the other researchers understood what Dr. Novak seemed to miss: the line between beneficial and harmful effects of memory modification was far thinner than he believed. The disagreement had led to Dr. Novak's departure from the company in early 2019. Mimic Solutions had continued their research within ethical guidelines, but their work had been slow and expensive. Meanwhile, Dr. Novak had disappeared from the academic community entirely. We heard rumors that he was continuing his research independently, Dr. Vasquez said, but we had no idea he would actually deploy it without safeguards. When your research team contacted me, I realized what might have happened. The timeline fit perfectly: Dr. Novak's departure from Mimic Solutions in early 2019, followed by the mysterious appearance of the reset video in November of the same year. But understanding the origin of the video only raised more disturbing questions. Sarah Chen, who had been following the investigation closely, posed the question that was troubling everyone. If Dr. Novak was trying to help people, why did the video disappear, and why don't people remember watching it? Dr. Webb had been wondering the same thing. His research team had now documented over 200 cases of people who had encountered the mysterious video, and the pattern was consistent: temporary memory suppression, followed by an inability to locate the video again, and a sense that something had been cleaned from their minds. The answer came from an unexpected breakthrough in Kenji's technical analysis. While tracing the digital footprints of the Cognitive Clarity account, he had discovered something remarkable. The video had been designed to erase itself from viewers' memories as part of its function. It's incredibly sophisticated, Kenji explained to the research team during one of their regular video conferences. The audio and visual elements don't just target specific types of memories, they also target the memory of watching the video itself. It's like a digital self-destruct mechanism for the experience. This revelation changed everything. What had seemed like a beneficial but ethically questionable therapy was revealed to be something far more concerning: a form of non-consensual memory modification that erased evidence of its own use. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been working with James Morrison and several other affected individuals, provided crucial insight into the long-term effects. While most of our subjects report initial benefits: reduced anxiety, fewer intrusive thoughts, we're beginning to see some concerning patterns. Some individuals are reporting difficulty forming new memories of similar emotional content, as if the video has created a kind of selective amnesia that continues beyond the initial viewing. The implications were staggering. Dr. Novak's creation wasn't just removing unwanted memories and thoughts, it was potentially altering the fundamental way viewers processed and stored emotional memories going forward. But perhaps most disturbing was the targeting mechanism that Kenji had discovered. The video hadn't been randomly distributed. YouTube's algorithm had been manipulated to specifically recommend it to users whose viewing patterns suggested they were struggling with mental health issues. People seeking help for anxiety, depression, or insomnia had been unknowingly subjected to an experimental memory modification procedure without their knowledge or consent. As the research team continued their investigation, they began to uncover the full scope of Dr. Novak's unauthorized experiment. Tracking similar patterns of algorithmic manipulation and suspicious account activity, they found evidence of at least 15 different videos, each targeted to specific demographics and psychological profiles. There had been versions designed for veterans dealing with PTSD, others targeted at individuals with chronic pain, and still others aimed at people experiencing grief and loss. Each video had been carefully crafted to address specific types of unwanted memories and emotional experiences, and each had been deployed without any of the ethical safeguards that legitimate research requires. The scale of the unauthorized experiment was breathtaking. Conservative estimates suggested that over 50,000 people worldwide had been exposed to Dr. Novak's memory modification videos without their knowledge. Most would never even realize they had been subjects in an uncontrolled experiment on human consciousness and memory. But as the research team worked to document and understand the full extent of what had happened, they faced a new challenge. Dr. Novak himself had vanished completely. His last known address was empty, his professional contacts had heard nothing from him in months, and his digital footprint had gone cold. It was Dr. Chang from MIT who made the connection that would lead them to the truth. While reviewing the technical specifications of the videos, she noticed something familiar in the audio processing techniques being used. The specific frequency modulations and brainwave entrainment patterns matched research that had been published by a team at the European Center for Advanced Neurotechnology in Zurich. A few careful inquiries revealed that Dr. Novak had been collaborating with researchers at the center, ostensibly on legitimate therapeutic applications of his work, but according to his colleagues there, he had become increasingly secretive and paranoid in the months before his disappearance. Alex was convinced that there were powerful forces trying to suppress his research. Dr. Friedrich Zimmermann from the Zurich Center explained during a confidential call with the investigation team. He believed that pharmaceutical companies and traditional therapy establishments were threatened by the potential of his work to revolutionize mental health treatment. Dr. Novak's paranoia had apparently grown to the point where he believed his own research partners couldn't be trusted. He had begun working independently, using the center's resources and equipment without authorization, and had eventually been asked to leave. The last time we spoke, Dr. Zimmermann continued, Alex told me he was going to prove that the work could help millions of people. He said he was tired of waiting for institutional approval and ethical committees to catch up with the technology. I thought he was just frustrated. But now I realize he was planning something far more drastic. The investigation had now revealed not just the existence of Dr. Novak's unauthorized experiment, but also the mindset that had driven him to conduct it. He had genuinely believed he was helping people, but his conviction had led him to bypass every ethical safeguard designed to protect human subjects in research. As the research team compiled their findings, they faced a difficult decision. The evidence they had gathered revealed a serious violation of research ethics and potentially criminal behavior, but it also provided unique insights into the nature of human memory and the possibility of therapeutic memory modification. Dr. Webb, who had emerged as the leader of the informal investigation, called a final video conference to discuss how to proceed. Representatives from over a dozen institutions were present, along with several of the individuals who had been unknowingly subjected to Dr. Novak's experiments. We have a responsibility to report what we've discovered, Dr. Webb began. But we also have a responsibility to the people who were affected, and to the broader scientific community, to ensure that this research is properly understood, and that its implications are carefully considered. Sarah Chen, who had sparked the entire investigation with her own experience, raised a crucial point. Many of the people who watched these videos report that they felt genuinely helped by the experience. They had fewer intrusive thoughts, less anxiety, better sleep. Are we saying that was wrong? It was Dr. Rodriguez who provided the most thoughtful response. The outcomes may have been beneficial for some people, but that doesn't justify the methods. Informed consent isn't just a bureaucratic requirement, it's fundamental to maintaining trust between researchers and the public. When we bypass that consent, we damage not just individual autonomy, but the entire foundation of ethical research. The team agreed to prepare a comprehensive report of their findings, but they also committed to handling the information responsibly. Rather than simply exposing Dr. Novak's unauthorized experiments, they would work with ethics committees and regulatory bodies to ensure that the legitimate aspects of his research could continue under proper oversight. They also agreed to continue monitoring the individuals who had been affected by the videos, providing support and documentation of any long-term effects. While the immediate consequences seemed largely positive, the long-term implications of non-consensual memory modification were still unknown. As for Dr. Novak himself, he remained elusive. Some believed he had simply disappeared to avoid consequences for his unauthorized research. Others suspected he might be continuing his work somewhere beyond the reach of institutional oversight. But perhaps the most intriguing possibility was raised by Kenji, whose technical analysis had been crucial to understanding how the videos worked. What if Dr. Novak used his own technology on himself? He suggested during one of their final discussions, what if he erased his own memories of creating these videos, or modified his own recollections to remove guilt or concern about the ethics of what he was doing? It was a chilling thought. If Dr. Novak had indeed used his memory modification technology on himself, he might not even remember the unauthorized experiments he had conducted. He could be living somewhere, completely unaware of the impact his work had had on thousands of people around the world. The investigation had revealed not just a fascinating case study in neuroscience and digital media, but also a profound cautionary tale about the intersection of technology and human consciousness. Dr. Novak's work had demonstrated that precise targeted memory modification was not just theoretically possible, but technically achievable with existing technology. The implications extended far beyond individual therapy. If memories could be selectively suppressed or enhanced through digital media, what did that mean for education, entertainment, or even propaganda? If techniques that had been developed for therapeutic purposes could be deployed without consent through platforms like YouTube, what safeguards existed to prevent more malicious uses? As the research team prepared their final report, they grappled with these broader questions. They had solved the mystery of the disappearing YouTube video, but in doing so, they had opened a window into a future where the line between beneficial and harmful uses of memory modification technology would become increasingly difficult to navigate. Sarah Chen, reflecting on her role in uncovering this story, felt a mixture of satisfaction and unease. The investigation had revealed important truths about memory, consent, and the responsible development of neurotechnology, but it had also shown how quickly beneficial research could be transformed into something ethically problematic. "I keep thinking about that night when I first watched the video," she told Dr. Webb during one of their final conversations. "I felt genuinely better afterward, more focused and calm than I had been in months. Part of me is grateful for that experience, even though I know it was wrong to subject me to it without my knowledge." Dr. Webb nodded thoughtfully. "That's perhaps the most troubling aspect of this entire case. Dr. Novak's intentions may have been good, and his technology may have genuine therapeutic value. But good intentions don't excuse bypassing the ethical frameworks we've developed to protect people from harm." 6 months after the investigation concluded, an unexpected development would add another layer to this already complex story. Dr. Sarah Chen, now working closely with the research team established to monitor affected individuals, received a message that would change everything they thought they knew about Dr. Novak's disappearance. The message came through an encrypted email service, and the sender identified themselves only as a concerned colleague. The content was brief but shocking. "Alexander Novak is not missing. He is hiding in plain sight, and his work never stopped." The reset video was only the beginning. Attached to the message was a data file containing what appeared to be network traffic analysis from major streaming platforms. The patterns were subtle but unmistakable to anyone familiar with Dr. Novak's work: algorithmic manipulation designed to target specific psychological profiles with customized content. Sarah immediately contacted Dr. Webb, and within hours the old investigation team was reassembling via secure video conference. Kenji, whose technical expertise had been crucial to understanding the original videos, began analyzing the new data with a mixture of excitement and dread. "This is far more sophisticated than what we saw before," he reported after 3 days of intensive analysis. "Instead of standalone videos, we're looking at a distributed system. Individual elements embedded across thousands of different pieces of content, all working together to create cumulative effects on viewers' cognitive states." The implications were staggering. Rather than relying on single videos that might be detected and removed, Dr. Novak appeared to have evolved his approach into something far more subtle and pervasive. Fragments of his memory modification technology were now embedded in seemingly innocent content across multiple platforms: meditation apps, study music compilations, sleep aid videos, even background music in popular gaming streams. Dr. Rodriguez, who had been continuing her work with affected individuals, made a disturbing connection. "Some of my patients have been reporting new symptoms over the past few months. Nothing dramatic, but small changes in how they process emotional memories, how they respond to stress. I attributed it to normal variation in recovery, but now I'm wondering if they've been exposed to additional modifications without realizing it." The investigation that followed would reveal the true scope of Dr. Novak's ambitions. Working with a small team of programmers and cognitive scientists, he had essentially created a shadow network of memory modification content that operated beneath the detection thresholds of both platform algorithms and human awareness. The concerned colleague who had first alerted them to this development eventually agreed to meet in person. Dr. Maria Santos had been one of Dr. Novak's original research partners at Mimic Solutions, and she had been tracking his unauthorized activities for over a year. Alex didn't disappear, she explained during a tense meeting in a coffee shop near Stanford's campus. He adapted. After the original videos were discovered and removed, he realized that his approach was too crude, too easily detected, so he developed something much more elegant. According to Dr. Santos, Dr. Novak had recruited a network of content creators, app developers, and even streaming service employees to embed his modified audio and visual elements into mainstream digital content. Most of these collaborators didn't understand the true nature of what they were distributing. They believed they were simply helping to create more effective relaxation and focus enhancement content. The genius of it is that no single piece of content contains enough of the modification elements to be effective on its own, Dr. Santos continued. But when someone watches or listens to several pieces over time, the cumulative effect can be significant. It's like he's created a distributed memory modification system that hides in plain sight. The technical elegance of Dr. Novak's evolved approach was matched by its ethical bankruptcy. Millions of people were now potentially being exposed to unauthorized memory modification without any awareness that it was happening. The effects were subtle enough to seem like natural improvements in mood and cognition, but systematic enough to represent a massive violation of human autonomy. Sarah Chen found herself at the center of a moral dilemma that would define the next phase of her career. As someone who had experienced the benefits of Dr. Novak's technology firsthand, she understood its potential value. But as a scientist and a human being, she was appalled by the methods being used to deploy it. "We're essentially dealing with the involuntary medication of millions of people," she told Dr. Webb during one of their planning sessions. "The fact that the medication might be beneficial doesn't change the fundamental ethics of the situation." The research team faced a choice. They could expose Dr. Novak's new network immediately, potentially helping millions of people avoid unauthorized memory modification, but also destroying years of research that might eventually lead to legitimate therapeutic breakthroughs. Or they could attempt to work with Dr. Novak directly, trying to persuade him to conduct his research through proper channels. Dr. Santos provided them with a way to contact Dr. Novak, though she warned that he had become increasingly paranoid and difficult to reason with. "He's convinced that he's saving humanity from its own psychological suffering," she explained. In his mind, the ethical concerns are irrelevant compared to the potential benefits. The first communication with Dr. Novak came through a series of encrypted messages that revealed both his continued brilliance and his dangerous disconnect from ethical reality. He acknowledged his role in creating the distributed memory modification network, but he defended it as necessary progress in human cognitive enhancement. "Traditional research moves too slowly," he wrote in one message. "While ethics committees debate consent forms and institutional review boards argue about risk assessment, millions of people continue to suffer from anxiety, depression, PTSD, and other conditions that we now have the technology to address. My work provides relief to people who might otherwise never receive it." Dr. Webb attempted to engage Dr. Novak in a dialogue about the importance of informed consent and proper research protocols, but the responses revealed a mind that had become increasingly isolated from mainstream scientific thinking. "Consent is a luxury for people who have other options," Dr. Novak replied. "The individuals whose lives have been improved by my work were not going to receive traditional therapy. They were not going to participate in formal clinical trials. They were going to continue suffering until someone like me decided to actually help them." The exchange continued for several weeks, with the research team attempting to find common ground with Dr. Novak while simultaneously working to understand and document the full extent of his distributed network. What they discovered was both impressive and terrifying. Dr. Novak's system had reached an estimated 2.3 million people across 6 continents. The modifications were carefully calibrated to each individual's psychological profile based on their digital consumption patterns, social media activity, and other behavioral data. The system could identify people dealing with specific types of psychological distress and deliver targeted cognitive modifications through the content they already consumed regularly. From a technical standpoint, it represented a breakthrough in personalized digital therapeutics. From an ethical standpoint, it was perhaps the largest unauthorized human subjects experiment in history. The turning point came when Dr. Rodriguez identified the first serious adverse effect from Dr. Novak's distributed system. A young artist named Michael Torres had been creating digital art for several months, consuming large amounts of music and visual content while working. Unknown to him, much of this content contained elements of Dr. Novak's memory modification system. Initially, Michael had felt more focused and creative than ever before. His work improved, his anxiety decreased, and he felt more confident in his artistic abilities. But after about 6 months of regular exposure, he began experiencing what he described as emotional numbness. "It's like someone turned down the volume on all my feelings," Michael explained to Dr. Rodriguez during a clinical interview. "I can still access my memories, but they don't have the emotional weight they used to have. Happy memories feel distant, but so do sad ones. I can remember being in love, but I can't really feel what that was like." This was exactly the kind of unintended consequence that proper clinical trials were designed to detect and prevent. Dr. Novak's modification system, while effective at reducing negative emotions and intrusive thoughts, appeared to be capable of blunting emotional responses more broadly when exposure continued over extended periods. When the research team presented this case to Dr. Novak, his response revealed how far he had drifted from responsible scientific practice. Rather than expressing concern for Michael's well-being or agreeing to halt the distribution of his modifications, he argued that the emotional dampening was a minor side effect compared to the benefits most people experienced. "Every medical intervention has potential side effects," he wrote. "The question is whether the benefits outweigh the risks. Traditional antidepressants can cause emotional blunting, but we don't stop prescribing them because they help more people than they harm." Dr. Webb's response was swift and uncompromising. "The difference is that people taking antidepressants know they're taking them. They've discussed the risks and benefits with healthcare providers. They can choose to stop taking them if side effects become problematic. Your subjects have none of those protections." The ethical debate continued, but it became clear that Dr. Novak was not going to voluntarily cease his unauthorized research. The investigation team faced the difficult decision of whether to expose his network publicly, knowing that doing so would likely end any chance of channeling his research into legitimate therapeutic applications. The decision was made for them when a journalist at the Wall Street Journal, working on an unrelated story about algorithmic content manipulation, stumbled upon evidence of Dr. Novak's network. Within days, the story broke internationally, and the full scope of the unauthorized memory modification experiment became public knowledge. The public reaction was intense and divided. Some people, particularly those who believed they had benefited from exposure to Dr. Novak's modifications, defended his work as a breakthrough in accessible mental health treatment. Others were horrified by the revelation that their minds had been altered without their knowledge or consent. Technology companies scrambled to remove identified content from their platforms, but the distributed nature of Dr. Novak's system made this nearly impossible. For every piece of modified content that was removed, analysis suggested that dozens more remained undetected in the vast ecosystem of digital media. Regulatory agencies around the world began investigating the implications of the case for existing laws and oversight mechanisms. The ability to modify human cognition through mainstream digital content had outpaced the legal and ethical frameworks designed to govern such interventions. Dr. Novak himself vanished once again, this time more completely than before. Some suspected he had used his own memory modification technology to erase his recollections of the entire project, allowing him to start fresh without the burden of guilt or fear of consequences. Sarah Chen, reflecting on the expanded investigation, found herself grappling with questions that went far beyond the specific case of Dr. Novak's research. "We've essentially discovered that human consciousness can be modified subtly and effectively through digital media," she told Dr. Webb during one of their final debriefings. "Even if we stop Dr. Novak, how do we prevent others from using similar techniques for less benevolent purposes?" It was a question that would drive Sarah's research for years to come. She established a new laboratory focused on detecting and defending against unauthorized cognitive modification through digital media. Her work would become crucial as similar technologies began appearing in commercial applications, often with inadequate safeguards and oversight. The story of Dr. Novak's memory modification research serves as a cautionary tale about the pace of technological advancement relative to ethical and regulatory oversight. It demonstrates how good intentions can lead to profound violations of human autonomy when proper safeguards are bypassed in the name of efficiency or accessibility. But it also reveals the incredible potential of neurotechnology to address human suffering when developed and deployed responsibly. The legitimate applications of memory modification research continue to show promise for treating PTSD, depression, addiction, and other conditions that cause immense human suffering. The challenge for scientists, regulators, and society as a whole is to find ways to support beneficial research while maintaining the ethical protections that preserve human dignity and autonomy. The case of Dr. Novak's unauthorized experiments reminds us that the most powerful technologies require the most careful oversight, and that good intentions alone are never sufficient justification for bypassing the consent of those affected by research. As you consider this story, you might find yourself more aware of the digital content you consume and its potential effects on your thoughts and memories. This awareness itself is perhaps one of the most important lessons from Dr. Novak's work. In an age of increasingly sophisticated technology, maintaining conscious control over our cognitive experiences requires both vigilance and active participation in the decisions that shape how these technologies are developed and deployed. The mystery of the YouTube video that erases memory has been solved, but the larger questions it raises about technology, consciousness, and human autonomy will continue to challenge us as our understanding of the brain advances and our digital lives become ever more integrated with our mental experiences. In the end, the story serves as both a warning and an inspiration, a reminder that we must remain vigilant about protecting human autonomy, while also recognizing the incredible potential of neuroscience to reduce suffering and enhance human well-being. The key lies in ensuring that this potential is realized through methods that respect human dignity and preserve the fundamental right to informed consent over our own minds and memories.